Well, this is Cecilia Steyn. By day, she's a woman of class, refined, respected, and admired. But behind closed doors, she's something far more sinister. A fraudster, a master manipulator, and a cult leader. Her followers believed she was Jesus Christ's chosen operative, waging war against Lucifer's kingdom. They were loyal and they were devoted. They believed they were serving a divine mission. Between 2012 and 2016, Cecilia orchestrated the murder of 11 people without ever laying a finger on a single victim. Her targets? Professionals in property and finance. The question that lingers, how did she pull this off? And how did she manage to evade authorities for so long? Join me as we unravel the chilling mysteries of the Electus cult, the cult that believed it was chosen by God. In 2012, a central character Cecilia joined the Overcomers Through Christ Church under the guise of seeking deliverance from Satanism. She claimed she had exited a satanic cult and the move had made her experience demonic attacks. The latter believed they were helping a soul in need and promised to help her get out of the situation through praying for her. Soon, her relationship with Ria Granwald, the leader of the Overcomers Through Christ Church, grew cold after Ria found out she had been lying to them. It is important to note that during these happenings, Zach Valentine and his wife Michaela had just joined the church. Ria had chosen to cut her association with Cecilia, and this prompted Cecilia to form the Electus cult, the chosen by God cult. Cecilia, in a cult, had recruited Marinda Steyn, a school teacher. Though sharing a surname, Marinda Steyn was not actually related to her. Marinda's children, Leroy and Marcel, were also part of the group. Zach Valentine and his wife, and lastly, John Bernard, had also joined the group, making a grand total of the cult members to 7. With this group, Cecilia led them with a belief they were God's soldiers, tasked with eliminating threats, both physical and spiritual. What started as a prayer group turned into a deadly network, and over the course of 4 years, that is 2012 to 2016, they would end up leaving 11 victims. In one chilling plot, Cecilia and Marinda Steyn attempted to plant explosives on the cars of former OTC members. The plan was to eliminate them before they could expose the cult's secrets. Fortunately, the bombs were never detonated as they were almost spotted, leading them to flee. The intent was clear. Cecilia was willing to kill anyone who stood in her way, even those who once called her a sister in Christ. Later that month, they started a fire and broke windows at the Lighthouse Christian Center in Randsburg. Cecilia had allegedly left a note on the building's gate that read, "Ria, who is going to protect you now?" On July 11th, Cecilia and her accomplices had managed to detonate explosives near cars at the OTC meeting. The girls' first victims were mainly chosen either due to fear of exposure of the cult or revenge against the OTC. Cecilia first convinced Zach to kill Natasha Burgers as she saw her as a threat to her cult. Zach broke into the Wider Park flat of Joy Bunzala, a close friend of Natasha, and forced her to write a note to Natasha asking her to drop by her apartment on her way back from work. When Natasha arrived, Zach stabbed both her and Joy to death. The group's next victim was Reginald John Edwin, a semi-retired pastor who Ria regarded as a mentor. Cecilia saw this as a way to get back at Ria and decided to kill him. Under the guise of law enforcers, Zach and Marinda entered the pastor's home and fatally attacked him with a hand axe, resulting in his death. In addition, Cecilia allegedly planned on having Ria's son, Joshua Grunwald, slaughtered, but the three hitmen whom she had hired never carried it out. At this point, one of the group's members, Michaela, had grown disillusioned with the activities carried out in the group. Consequently, Zach and Cecilia considered her a threat and decided to kill her. On October 4th, 2012, with a proper alibi of going to work, Zach dragged her coffee and handed Marinda a set of house keys and a gate remote. She and her daughter Marcel, who was 14 at the time, killed the 25-year-old Michaela by smashing her skull with a blunt object and stabbed her around 60 times. This was victim number 4. The group took a 3-year run with their murder streak, and when they seemed to run out of money, as the leader, Cecilia devised a scheme to obtain money through insurance fraud, theft, and murder. John, one of the cult members, set up a meeting between his employer Peter Meyer and the group to discuss a business venture. And in November 27, 2015, Zach, Marinda, and Marcel arrived at his home, tied him up, and demanded money. Zach then stabbed Peter and his wife when they would not provide much cash. Later on, Cecilia schemed an insurance fraud by orchestrating Zach's death. Using a street vendor, Leroy drugged and strangled him before setting his body in the driver's seat at Zach's Mercedes-Benz SLK and setting the car on fire on December 16, 2015. Marinda identified Zach's body and the following day obtained a death certificate to secure the 3.5 million rand insurance payout, with Cecilia as the primary beneficiary. From then on, the group embarked on a series of appointment murders where they would set up false appointments with victims and intimidate them until they handed over their bank cards. Marcel would go to a nearby ATM and verify whether the PIN was correct, after which they would be killed. The first victim was Glenn McGregor, 57 years at the time, and a tax collector from Randfontein. He was forced to transfer 6,000 rand before being shot dead at his home on January 27, 2016. The next victim, 67-year-old Anthony Scofield, who was also a tax consultant, was strangled and placed inside the trunk of his abandoned car in May 2016 after the group withdrew 16,600 rands from his accounts and used his cards at various shops in Krugersdorp. Another victim, Kevin McAlpine, who was 29 years, met a similar fate on May 26th with 1,300 rand withdrawn from his account. The group's final victim was 52-year-old real estate agent Hanley Latagen, who was killed on May 30th after the group removed 3,000 rands from his account. A few weeks after Hanley's murder, Marinda's children, 20-year-old Leroy and Marcel, who was now 18 years, were arrested. Police had gotten their first major breakthrough when ATM surveillance footage showed Leroy and Marcel Steyn using the victims' bank cards shortly after the death. Once Leroy and Marcel were in custody, the investigators began connecting the dots. What seemed like isolated killings turned out to be part of a 4-year murder spree involving 11 victims, all tied to a shadowy group operating under religious pretense. Police uncovered links to fake job interviews, staged robberies, cult-like rituals, and a leader who claimed to be chosen by God. The real turning point came when Leroy Steyn and John Bernard, another cult member who had allegedly almost been killed by the group, agreed to testify against the group. Their inside knowledge exposed the cult's structure, motives, and Cecilia Steyn's role as the mastermind. In June 2019, the Gauteng High Court found Cecilia Steyn, Zach Valentine, and Marcel Steyn guilty of 32 counts, including murder, fraud, racketeering, and robbery. Marinda Steyn, who had already pleaded guilty, was sentenced to 11 lifetimes and an addition of 115 years. Cecilia, the cult leader, was convicted despite never physically committing the murders. She was sentenced to 13 lifetimes. Zach Valentine, who faked his own death, was exposed as a key accomplice and was sentenced to 8 life sentences. Leroy was sentenced to 35 years as he had pled and helped authorities to unravel the group's deeds. Lastly, the youngest of them all, Cecilia Steyn, was sentenced to 7 life sentences.